Daedalus was an incredibly talented architect and inventor, so talented that King Minos of Crete didn't want to let him return to his home in Athens. Instead, the king kept him as a prisoner. Daedalus lived with his son Icarus in a tower of the palace, and King Minos forced him to create weapons of war that would make his army and navy even stronger than they already were. Although Daedalus and Icarus had everything they could possibly want, Daedalus desperately wished to go back home to Athens. His son barely remembered the city, but he also wanted to leave because he longed to run and play in the open instead of being stuck in a tower all day. Daedalus looked out over the waves of the Mediterranean Sea, and he realized that even if they managed to escape from the tower and find a small boat, they wouldn't be able to sail very far before being spotted and captured by one of King Minos' ships. He thought for a long time about how they could escape, and finally, he came up with a plan. This is what he did. He told King Minos that he needed feathers and wax for a new invention he was working on. When these materials were brought to him, he took them up to the roof of the tower. There he arranged the feathers into 4 rows, starting with the smallest feathers and following them with the larger ones, so they formed gentle curves. He then began to stick the feathers together with thread in the middle and wax at the base. While he was working, Icarus played with the wax, squishing it between his fingers, and when the feathers blew away in the breeze, he ran after them and caught them. When Daedalus had finished, he showed Icarus what he had made. He had turned the feathers into 2 pairs of wings. He fastened the larger pair to his arms and started flapping them until his feet lifted off the ground and he began to hover in the air. Icarus laughed with delight and couldn't wait to try out the smaller pair of wings. Over the next few days, both father and son practiced flying until little Icarus was almost as good as his father. Then one morning, Daedalus said to Icarus, "Now son, we're ready to leave this island for good. We'll fly home to Athens. Although you've become quite good at flying, you must remember that it can be very dangerous. Listen carefully to my instructions and make sure you follow them exactly. Always follow me, because I will lead the way home. Don't stray off on a different path, or you'll soon get lost. Don't fly too low, or your wings will absorb moisture from the sea and become too heavy, causing you to sink. And don't fly too high, or the sun will heat the wax and your wings will fall apart. Do you understand everything I've said?" Little Icarus nodded to show his father that he understood. Then Daedalus led his son up to the top of the tower, and like a bird leading her young from the nest for the first time, he jumped into the air and flapped his wings. Icarus followed soon after. If a fisherman or shepherd had looked up at that moment, they would have seen 2 very unusual birds hovering above the waves. They likely would have thought they had spotted 2 winged gods. Who could have believed that a mortal father and son had mastered the art of flight? They flew over the sea, and at first Icarus felt scared because he had never flown very far during their practice sessions, but soon he realized he was really good at flying. In fact, it was the most fun he had ever had. He started to swoop up and down with the seagulls. Wow, it was incredible. His father turned around and called, "Icarus, be careful." And for a while after that, Icarus obeyed his father and flew behind him. But then his wings caught a warm air current, and he found that he could soar upwards almost effortlessly. This was the life. He was floating so high above the waves that the ships below looked like tiny specks. His father called up to him, "Icarus, remember what I told you, come down right now." But Icarus couldn't hear him, and his father couldn't catch up to him. Icarus was far too close to the sun, and soon the wax that held the feathers together started to melt. Gradually, his wings began to lose their shape, and some of the feathers even started to fall off. Icarus flapped his arms frantically, but it was too late. He had lost the ability to fly, and he plunged. Once upon a time, there was a young nobleman named Raymondin. He was a good person, brave and loyal, but one day, something terrible happened. While he was out hunting with his uncle, Count Emery, Raymondin accidentally killed him. As they rode through the dense woods, chasing after a wild boar, Raymondin's spear missed its mark and struck his uncle instead. The great Count fell to the ground, and with him, Raymondin's world came crashing down. Raymondin was devastated. He had just accidentally killed the man who had been like a father to him. Overcome with grief and guilt, He fled into the deepest part of the forest, away from the hunting party, away from the scene of the tragedy, and away from everything he knew. He ran deep into the forest, not knowing where to go or what to do. As the sun began to set and the forest grew darker, Raymondin came across a beautiful, peaceful spring. And there, by the water, was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen appeared. Her name was Melusine. She had long, flowing hair and eyes that seemed to sparkle with kindness and mystery. Melusine saw the sadness in Raymondin's eyes and asked him what was wrong. He told her everything, how he had accidentally killed his uncle and how he didn't know how to live with himself after what he had done. Melusine listened carefully and then offered to help him. She told him that she could help him make things right and restore his honor. But there was one condition. Raymondin had to promise that he would never, ever try to see her on Saturdays. Raymondin was so grateful for her help and so captivated by her beauty that he quickly agreed. They got married and started a life together. With Melusine's help, Raymondin's life turned around completely. He became wealthy and powerful, and they built beautiful castles together, including one called the Château de Lusignan. They also had many children, all of whom were strong and talented. For a long time, everything was perfect. But as the years went by, Raymondin's curiosity started to grow. He loved Melusine more than anything, but he couldn't stop wondering what she did on Saturdays. Why was she so secretive about that one day? Eventually, he couldn't take it anymore. So one Saturday, he decided to break his promise and spy on her. What he saw shocked him. Melusine wasn't just a normal person. On Saturdays, she turned into a creature with the tail of a fish. She was half human, half fish. Raymondin's heart pounded in his chest as he realized the truth. His beloved wife was not entirely of this world. She was a creature of magic. At that moment, Melusine sensed Raymondin's presence. She turned to face him, her eyes filled with sorrow and pain. "You have broken your promise," she whispered with a heavy voice. "I trusted you, and now you have betrayed that trust." In that moment, Melusine knew she couldn't stay with him anymore because he had broken his promise. She was heartbroken because she had truly loved him, but his betrayal meant that she had to leave. Raymondin, realizing the enormity of what he had done, tried to apologize, but it was too late. Melusine's expression changed from sorrow to resolve, and with a heart-wrenching cry, she transformed again fully into a being with wings. With one last mournful look at Raymondin, the she spread her wings and flew away, disappearing into the night sky. Before Raymondin's eyes, his wife, the woman he had loved and cherished, was gone. Raymondin stood frozen, his heart shattered, as the reality of his loss sank in. He had lost not just his wife, but the magic and wonder that she had brought into his life. Raymondin never saw her again, but he would always remember the amazing, magical woman who had changed his life forever. And sometimes, when the wind blows through the trees near that old spring, it is said that you can still hear her soft voice singing a sad, sweet song about the love. There was once a terribly ugly creature named Silenus. He pranced over the mountains on a pair of hairy goat legs. He had a long tail that swished behind him, but from the waist up, he was more or less a man. His big belly bounced as he ran along. A pair of horns sprouted from his bald, shiny head. Slobber dripped from his thick purple lips. In short, this strange creature was a satyr. Silenus was a friend of Dionysus, the god of wine. Dionysus often gathered his wild group of followers in the woods for loud, crazy parties. These followers included satyrs as well as maenads, who were wild women of the woods. They would bang drums, blow pipes and horns, crash cymbals, and dance themselves into a wild frenzy. But most of all, they loved to drink wine. One time, after Silenus had been partying all night, he stumbled out of the woods and into the palace grounds of Midas, king of Phrygia. He lay down between the rose bushes and fell into a deep sleep. Around mid-morning, Princess Zoe was walking through the gardens, picking rose blossoms. She saw the hairy hoof of Silenus sticking out from the bushes and thought a sick goat had come into the garden to lie down. Since he was dirty and smelled bad, she called the gardener. When the gardener came, he pulled on the leg and found not a goat, but a satyr. "Ugh, he's disgusting," exclaimed Zoe. "Throw him on the compost heap." "I'd better ask the king before I do that," said the gardener. "After all, a satyr can bring good luck." When King Midas heard that a satyr was sleeping in the rose garden, he ordered that the creature be given a bed in the palace until he felt better. The servants carried Silenus on a stretcher to the best guest room. There he stayed, snoring loudly and smelling like a goat for almost another day. When he finally woke up, he staggered into the palace kitchen and loudly demanded cheese, eggs, and wine. The cook wanted to chase him out with a meat cleaver, but the steward stopped him, saying the satyr was a guest of the king. Silenus took the wine and wandered around the palace, leaving dirty hoofprints as he went. When the queen saw him, she was horrified. "Who or what is this vile creature that's staying with us?" she asked the king. Midas replied that Silenus was a friend of Dionysus, and everyone must treat him with great respect. Although Princess Zoe and the queen did their best to avoid the satyr, King Midas entertained his guest, eating and drinking with him late into the night and playing music on the panpipes. Silenus ended up staying with Midas for a week. No one was more pleased about this hospitality than Dionysus, because to him, anyone who honored Silenus also honored Dionysus. A few days after Silenus had left, Midas was walking in his rose garden when he heard some strange but beautiful music. He followed the sound and found a perfectly handsome man sitting on the grass and playing a pipe. Midas immediately knew the stranger was a god, so he knelt down on one knee. The god said, "Stand up. I'm not into formalities. I want to reward you. What gift would you like more than anything else in the world? Power isn't really my thing, but I can offer you wine, women, or music." "I need money," said Midas. "Money? What good does money do?" asked the god. "Well, of course, a god like you has no need for money," said Midas, "but we mortals can never have enough of it. I wish that everything I touched would turn to gold." Even though Dionysus thought it was a foolish wish, he granted it, saying, "Midas, everything you touch shall turn to gold." The god disappeared, and King Midas rejoiced in what was actually a curse. He reached out and touched a rose blossom, and it turned to gold. He picked up a stone, and it too became golden. Even a clod of earth turned to gold when he touched it. He plucked an apple from a low branch, and it immediately became cold and shiny. He held it in his hand and said, "Oh, how pure and perfect it is." Then he tossed the golden apple over his shoulder and rushed into the palace to test his touch on random objects, columns, statues, furniture, and doorknobs. The servants heard him laughing and shouting, "Gold, glorious gold," and wondered what had happened to the king. Princess Zoe heard him too. She found him turning peas into little golden nuggets. "Father, what has happened?" she asked. "The most wonderful thing," he replied, and he hugged her. But this was not what he had expected. He was holding not his daughter, but a cold, lifeless statue. Distraught, he went to the fountain to wash his hot tears from his face. But as he scooped up the water in his hands, it turned into liquid gold. Now he realized the cruelty of his gift. He cried out, "Lord Dionysus, save me from this cursed metal." Dionysus heard him and took pity on the foolish king. He appeared sitting on the edge of the fountain and said, "Go to the river that flows by the great city of Sardis. Make your way upstream until you reach the source. Plunge your head and body at the same time into the foaming fountain where the water gushes out and wash away your foolishness." Midas did as he was told, and when he plunged into the stream, the banks and the flowers growing there turned yellow and golden. But Midas emerged from the water free of his desire for riches and gold. For the rest of his life he rejoiced in all that was simple and natural. Years ago, right in this room you're in now, a Muslim wonder worker performed 4 miracles in front of me. It's a long story. The wonder worker's name was Afzal Khan. He gained his amazing powers after meeting a Hindu yogi by chance. One day when Afzal was a young boy in a small village in eastern Bengal, a dusty Hindu yogi asked him, "Son, I'm thirsty. Get me some water." Afzal replied, "Master, I'm a Muslim. How could you, a Hindu, accept a drink from me?" The holy man said, "Your honesty makes me happy, my child. I don't follow the strict rules that separate people. Go, bring me water quickly." Afzal obeyed with respect, and the yogi gave him a loving look in return. The yogi said seriously, "You have good karma from your past lives. I'm going to teach you a yoga method that will give you control over an invisible realm. The great powers you'll gain must be used for good purposes. Never use them selfishly. But I can also see that you have some harmful tendencies from your past. Don't let them grow by doing more bad things. Your past karma is complicated, so you need to use this life to balance your yoga abilities with helping humanity. After teaching the amazed boy a complicated technique, the master disappeared. Afzal faithfully practiced his yoga exercises for 20 years. His miraculous powers started to attract a lot of attention. It seemed that he was always accompanied by a spirit he called Hazrat. This invisible being could grant any wish Afzal had. Despite his master's warning, Afzal started to misuse his powers. Whatever he touched and put back would soon disappear without a trace. This made Afzal an unwanted guest. He would visit large jewelry stores in Calcutta and pretend to be a potential buyer. Any jewel he touched would vanish shortly after he left the shop. Afzal was often surrounded by hundreds of students who were eager to learn his secrets. Sometimes he would invite them to travel with him. At the train station, he would touch a roll of tickets and then return them to the clerk saying, "I've changed my mind and won't buy them now." But when he boarded the train with his group, Afzal somehow had the tickets they needed. These actions caused a lot of anger. Bengali jewelers and ticket sellers were having nervous breakdowns. The police tried to arrest Afzal, but they couldn't. The wonder worker could just ask Hazrat to make the evidence disappear by saying, "Hazrat, take this away." One day a friend of mine who got to know Afzal invited him to this very room where he lived. My friend also invited about 20 neighbors, including me. I was young back then and was very curious about this famous wonder worker. I made sure not to wear anything valuable. Afzal looked at me closely and then said, "You have strong hands. Go downstairs to the garden, find a smooth stone, write your name on it with chalk, and throw the stone as far as you can into the Ganges." I did as he asked. As soon as the stone disappeared under the distant waves, the wonder worker told me, "Get a pot of water from the Ganges near the front of this house." I brought back a pot of water and the wonder worker said, "Hazrat, put the stone in the pot." The stone appeared immediately. I pulled it out of the pot and found that my name was still clearly written on it. One of my friends in the room, Babu, was wearing a heavy antique gold watch and chain. The wonder worker looked at them with a suspiciously admiring glance. Soon, they were missing. Babu, nearly crying, begged, "Afzal, please return my treasured heirloom." The wonder worker remained silent for a while, then said, "You have 500 rupees in an iron safe. Bring them to me, and I'll tell you where to find your watch and chain." The distressed Babu quickly left for his home. He returned shortly and handed Afzal the money. The wonder worker then instructed Babu, "Go to the small bridge near your house. Call on Hazrat to return your watch and chain." Babu rushed away. When he came back, he was smiling with relief but no longer wearing any jewelry. He announced, "When I called on Hazrat as instructed, my watch and chain fell from the air into my right hand. I made sure to lock them in my safe before coming back here." Babu's friends, who had witnessed the bizarre situation of having to pay to get his watch back, were glaring at Afzal with anger. The wonder worker then spoke in a calming manner. "Please tell me any drink you want. Hazrat will provide it." Several people asked for milk, others for fruit juices. I wasn't too surprised when the nervous Babu requested whiskey. The wonder worker gave an order, and Hazrat sent sealed containers flying through the air and landing with a thud on the floor. Each person found the drink they had asked for. The promise of the fourth spectacular miracle of the day was probably pleasing to our host. Afzal offered to provide an instant lunch. "Let's order the most expensive dishes," Babu suggested sadly. "I want a fancy meal for my 500 rupees. Everything should be served on gold plates." After everyone had said what they wanted, the wonder worker called on the ever-helpful Hazrat. A loud noise followed, and gold platters filled with intricately prepared curries, hot luchis, and many out-of-season fruits landed out of nowhere at our feet. All the food was delicious. After eating for an hour, we started to leave the room. A loud clattering noise, as if dishes were being stacked up, made us turn around. To our surprise, there was no sign of the glittering plates or the food we had just eaten. I never saw Afzal again after that day, but a few years later, Babu came to my home to show me a newspaper article about the Wonder Worker's public confession. From it, I learned about Afzal's early initiation from a Hindu guru. The main part of the published confession went like this. I, Afzal Khan, am writing these words as an act of penance and to warn those who seek miraculous powers. For years, I have misused the wonderful abilities given to me through the grace of God and my master. I became arrogant, thinking I was above the normal rules of morality. My day of reckoning finally came. Recently, I met an old man on a road outside Calcutta. He was limping along painfully, carrying a shiny object that looked like gold. Greedily, I asked him, I am Afzal Khan, the great wonder worker. What do you have there? The old man replied, this ball of gold is my only material possession. It should be of no interest to a wonder worker. Please, sir, heal my limp. I touched the gold ball and walked away without answering. The old man hobbled after me. Soon he cried out, my gold is gone. As I ignored him, he suddenly spoke in a loud, powerful voice that seemed out of place for his weak body. Do you not recognize me? I stood there shocked, realizing too late that this unimpressive old man was actually the great saint who, many years ago, had taught me yoga. He straightened himself, and his body instantly became strong and youthful. My guru's eyes were blazing as he said, I see with my own eyes that you use your powers not to help suffering humanity, but to prey on it like a common thief. I am taking away your gifts. Hazrat is now free from you. You will no longer be a terror in Bengal. I desperately called on Hazrat, but for the first time he didn't appear to me. Instead, a dark veil was lifted inside me, and I saw clearly how wrong my life had been. I fell at my guru's feet crying, my master, thank you for coming to end my long delusion. I promise to give up my worldly ambitions. I will go to the mountains to meditate on God alone, hoping to atone for my evil past. My guru looked at me with silent compassion and said, I believe you are sincere. Because of your earlier years of strict obedience and your current repentance, I will grant you one favor. Your other powers are now gone. But whenever you need food and clothing, you may still call on Hazrat to provide them. Dedicate yourself fully to understanding the divine in the mountain solitude. Then my guru disappeared, leaving me alone with my tears and thoughts. Farewell, world. I am going to seek forgiveness from the cosmic beloved.
At dawn, the king of Bengal inspected his imperial guard, which was lined up in front of his palace. The guard consisted of 10,000 soldiers, all armed with spikes and swords. Flags fluttered in the wind, drums beat, horses stomped the ground, officers shouted commands, and the troops moved in formation. It was an impressive sight, even for a battle-hardened general. On this day, the Imperial Guard was ordered to fight a single person, the young, romantic, foolish prince who had snuck into the princess's chamber. The prince stood alone, facing the army. The king, standing on the palace wall, called out to him, Now, Prince of Persia, say goodbye to the princess you tried to marry without her father's permission. If you had asked me properly, I would have granted it. But now, you must prepare to face the sharp weapons of my army. The prince replied, But king, this isn't fair. Is it right for a prince to fight on foot? I was practically born riding horses. Bring me my horse, and I will face your army on horseback. The king saw no harm in this request and asked the prince where his horse was. The prince replied, It's waiting for me on the roof of the palace. Everyone who heard this thought the young man had lost his mind. They thought this explained all his strange behavior. His polite manners and good looks hid the fact that he was actually crazy. But the king humored the condemned man and ordered his slaves, Go up to the roof and bring down whatever you find there. It took 6 strong men to bring down the ebony horse, because it was heavy and solid. The king smiled when he saw that it was just a wooden toy. Trying not to laugh, he said, Mount your horse, prince. Some might doubt your sanity, for by Allah the Magnificent, you are one of a kind. But as my guest, I won't say you've lost your mind. Now go to your death like a true prince, and don't dishonor your father in your last moments. I won't, replied the prince, and with a dramatic gesture, he jumped onto his horse. Once he was seated, he turned the knob that made the horse rise into the air. Everyone watched as the horse began to shake and move, and then, to everyone's surprise, it lifted off the ground and flew over the heads of the army. Seeing this, the king quickly shouted, "Archers, shoot him down! Don't let the sorcerer escape, or you'll all regret it." A cloud of arrows flew into the air, but fell short of hitting the magnificent horse, which was already flying toward the sun. From the safety of the sky, the prince thought of the princess he had left behind and said, "By Allah, I will not forget you, my dearest Sana," for that was her name. He also realized that his father would be worried and grieving for him, so he directed his flying horse back toward Persia, the land he had left just the day before. His heart was filled with joy when he recognized his father's palace from the air, but when he landed, the scene was different. The entire court was dressed in mourning clothes, grieving his loss. When he ran inside and found his father, mother, and sisters, they were overjoyed to be reunited with the prince they thought they had lost forever. This was followed by a week of feasting and celebration. Everyone in the kingdom took part. The Shah even ordered all the prisoners to be released, and among the criminals who returned to daylight was the inventor of the flying horse. Meanwhile, in the palace, the king regretted ever buying the strange contraption and forbade his son from going near it again. He said, "I now see that the air is meant for birds. It is wrong for humans to try to fly. Science is a sin. We should obey the laws of nature, or humankind will surely cause its own destruction." The prince was so happy to be reunited with his family that he almost forgot about the beautiful Princess Sana. But not for long. During the height of the celebrations, a lovely handmaiden played a lute and sang, "Time dies, but it does not forget. The seconds pass, but not my love. At the end of eternity, I shall meet you yet." When the prince heard these words, his passion was reignited. He pretended to be tired and said he needed to rest, but instead, he sneaked out to the courtyard where the forbidden horse awaited him. In just one night, he returned to the kingdom of Bengal, found the palace, and the chamber where Princess Sana still slept. At her door, he heard her crying and reciting verses. He carefully walked over to her bed. "Who's there?" she asked nervously. "It's me, your prince," he said fondly. "I've come to take you back to Persia for our wedding day." "You!" she exclaimed, suddenly angry. He was afraid her loud voice would wake the guards. "You cruel man! How could you leave me?" "Would you rather I was killed by your father's 10,000 soldiers?" he replied. "If so, you can call the guards now, and I'll be dead in an instant." "No," she said confused. "My only wish is to be with you." And they embraced. As daylight was approaching, he quickly led her up to the roof, where they escaped on his wonderful flying horse. They flew away, but with great skill, the prince made the horse travel gently so as not to scare the princess. By midday, they had returned to his father's palace, where he had barely been missed. When his father saw the young prince's choice for a bride, more elegant than a gazelle, gentler than a warm breeze, and brighter than the moon, he was delighted by his son's good taste and judgment. He ordered preparations for another feast to celebrate the wedding of his son to Princess Sana. There was a delay while messengers were sent to her father in Bengal out of courtesy. In the meantime, the prince was rarely away from her side, though at times, official duties or the pleasures of hunting and being with his friends called him away. On one such occasion, the young princess was walking in the garden when she was approached by a man who seemed very old and rather ugly to her. "Oh, princess," he said, "your beloved has had to leave for another city on urgent business for his father. He misses your lovely face that shines in his heart like the sun in a clear sky. He has sent me to bring you to him." The story made sense to the young princess, and since she had already made one successful trip on the flying horse, she wasn't alarmed when the man asked her to climb on board with him. Little did she know that this old man was the cunning inventor of the machine, and he still held a grudge for the ungrateful way he had been treated by the prince and his father. Now he was seeking revenge. He turned the screw in the horse's neck, and up they flew into the sky. They flew on and on. At last she asked, "Old man, when will we see my prince? as you promised. I'm starting to fear that you're tricking me." The inventor replied, "You'll never see your prince again, for royal he may be, but he's still a scoundrel, a rascal, and a villain. He's as fit to rule Persia as a jackal is to rule the jungle. He's as lovely as a boil on the backside of an elephant. He has sucked my blood like a leech, and I will break his heart as he has broken mine." And he continued to curse the heart of her beloved. The poor princess knew she was doomed, and she cried as they flew. When he heard her crying, the inventor said, "Don't cry, princess, for I will marry you, and I'm a much better man than he is." At this, she sobbed even more and cried out, "Oh no, not only have I lost my prince, but I've also left behind my father and mother. Their hearts will be broken from losing me, their only daughter." Eventually, after they had flown for a day, they passed over a sparkling sea, dotted with beautiful islands with rocky cliffs and sandy beaches. Finally, they reached the mainland and landed in a cool, gentle field where goats and sheep grazed. They were in the land of the Greeks, and they rested there, both tired and hot. As they slept, a king who was out hunting found them. The Greek king was curious about the strange horse and ordered his servant to wake the couple. "Greetings," called the king. "Who are you? Where have you come from? And what is the secret of this strange black horse?" The inventor replied, "Sire, I am a prince of Persia, and this is my bride." But the princess, seeing a chance to be saved, cried out, "No, he is not. He is a wicked magician who has kidnapped me and taken me from my beloved prince." The Greek king had no doubt who he wanted to believe. He ordered his guard to cut off the ugly inventor's head, and that was the end of him. Then he took the lovely princess and the strange ebony horse back to his palace. Meanwhile, her prince had not stopped grieving the loss of his bride. As a penance for his carelessness in losing her, he dressed as a pilgrim and traveled from place to place, asking about the ugly magician, the lovely maiden, and the wonderful horse. Wherever he went, people thought his story was amusing, but also a sign of madness. Then, one day, after traveling for over a year, he sat down under a tree and overheard 3 merchants talking. They spoke of a strange event that was the subject of much gossip. The king, while out hunting, had found an evil magician with a hideous face, a princess as lovely as the day, and a mysterious horse carved from ivory. Finally, the prince's heart was filled with hope. His worries disappeared like a dark cloud. He had hope, but also caution. He made careful inquiries and learned that the king wanted to marry the lovely princess. Ever since he proposed, she had been stricken with a mysterious illness and refused to leave her bed. The king offered a huge reward for any priest, magician, or doctor who could cure her. The prince immediately guessed the truth, that the illness wasn't real, at least not of the body. It was grief of the heart, and the princess was pretending to be ill to delay the marriage and hope for rescue. Toward evening, the prince came to the palace gates and declared that he was a traveling medicine man. He asked for an audience with the king. Normally, he would have been turned away, but at that time, anyone claiming to have a cure for the princess was allowed to see the king. When the prince came before the king, the courtiers noticed his ragged clothes and foreign accent. He said he was Persian. The Greeks didn't like Persians and mocked him, but the king was desperate. He had spent a fortune on astrologers, doctors, and others, all to no avail. He said, "I don't care if he's Persian or from the moon. One more attempt can't hurt," and he allowed the visitor to see the princess. She lay with her eyes closed, seemingly asleep. He knelt down and whispered in her ear, "Oh, light of my life, don't be afraid or make a sound. It's me, your prince. I've searched the world for you, and now I've found you." In the morning, he went to the king and said that, in his opinion, the princess had been overtaken by demons of madness. Fortunately, he had a cure: special candles and fuel for a fire that would burn with sweet-smelling smoke and drive the demons away. The king was willing to try anything. He ordered the servants to dress the princess in beautiful clothes and jewelry. They led her into the courtyard, which was already filled with incense smoke. The mystical horse stood nearby, like a statue of a god. The Persian visitor threw lumps of colored coal onto the fire. The smoke thickened, making it hard to see. The smoke stung the king's eyes, and he rubbed them. When, a few minutes later, the smoke cleared, the prince, the princess, and the wonderful horse had vanished. No one had seen how the Persian mystic and the princess had climbed aboard the horse and flown away. Nor could they imagine that a day later they would be back in Persia, and that a week later they would be married, living happily together until, in their old age, they were taken away forever by the destroyer of all things. In a time long ago, when science and magic coexisted, Shah Sabur ruled over Persia. This wise and powerful ruler took great pleasure in the innovative creations of his era. On a particular festival day, 3 talented inventors, each skilled in their craft, arrived at his court. These men hailed from 3 different lands: India, Greece, and Persia. The king's throne was placed in the palace gardens, surrounded by his entire court, all eager to witness the inventions. The first inventor, from India, stepped forward, bowed low, and kissed the ground at the king's feet. A servant revealed his creation, a golden statue of a soldier blowing a trumpet. The king asked, "What is the purpose of this invention?" The Indian inventor responded, "My lord, it is meant to keep you safe." The king acknowledged that safety was indeed valuable, but questioned, "How will it provide that?" The inventor explained, "Place this statue by your palace gate, and if an enemy approaches, the golden guard will sound its trumpet, causing the evildoer to fall dead." The king, suppressing a yawn, said, "I already have something like that. Next." The next inventor, from Greece, then stepped forward. He prostrated himself before presenting a diamond-encrusted rooster. The king inquired, "And what is its purpose?" The Greek inventor explained, "My lord, this golden bird will announce the time by crowing on the hour, every hour. Additionally, at the end of each month, it will perform a dance." The king, unimpressed, asked, "And why should I care about the time? A king does as he pleases, whenever he pleases. It is for others to wait upon me. Next." Finally, the Persian inventor took his turn. Like the others, he kissed the ground before the king. The king, looking down from his throne, remarked, "I hope, for your sake, that you have something truly original to show me." The Persian inventor raised his hands to the sky, swiveled his eyes, and declared, "My lord, you shall soon witness the greatest marvel of our time, if God wills it." He snapped his fingers, and 6 slaves began pushing and pulling a large object into the courtyard. It was covered with a cloth, but its shape resembled that of a horse. Noticing this, the Greek inventor quietly slipped away, fearing the trouble that might follow. The king, growing impatient, commanded, "Well, what is it? Show me!" The inventor swiftly removed the cover, revealing a black horse statue. It lacked the luster of gold or the sparkle of diamonds, being made of dark, solid, and heavy African ebony wood. The king, somewhat annoyed, asked, "And what is the purpose of this unattractive object?" The inventor replied, "Allow me to demonstrate." With remarkable agility, despite his age, the inventor jumped onto an upturned box, then onto the horse's back. He twisted a knob at the back of its neck, and the horse instantly took flight, ascending above the heads of the astonished spectators, circling 3 times in the sky before gently landing back on the lawn. The Persian inventor dismounted and again prostrated himself before the throne. This time, King Sabur, Shah of Persia, was truly amazed and applauded, exclaiming, "By Allah, the Omnipotent, our Lord and Benefactor, who created all living things and sustains them, your words were true. You have presented a marvel worthy of our gaze. I must have that horse. Name your price, O inventor. Whatever you desire, speak it, and it shall be yours." The inventor responded, "Indeed, my lord, this horse can take its rider wherever he commands and cover the journey of a year in just 1 day." The king, eager and excited, said, "Yes, yes, I believe you, for I have seen it with my own eyes. What is your price?" The inventor, somewhat nervously, replied, "My invention deserves the highest reward." I ask, O munificent lord, for nothing less than the hand of your daughter, the princess, in marriage." Those nearby were shocked by this bold request. How could an unknown inventor, advanced in age and far from handsome, dare to ask for the princess's hand? It seemed likely that his head would soon be separated from his body. Yet, perhaps under some spell, the king replied, "Granted." The king's son, who overheard this, was furious that his father would disgrace their family by promising the princess to such a lowly and unattractive man. He thought it would be better to marry her to a snake charmer or a street performer. He hurried to his sister's chamber. From her window, she saw her future husband and immediately tore at her beautiful face, sobbing and crying. "Oh, woe is me! Am I to marry this creature? His hair is gray, his eyebrows are unkempt, his beard and mustache are stained. His eyes are bloodshot and bulging, his nose is like an eggplant, his lower lip sags, his teeth are missing. In short, he is a brute, a monster, the ugliest ogre of our time." She then retreated to her room, lay on the floor, rubbed dust into her hair, tore her clothes, and wailed in despair. Her brother, filled with both pity and anger, ran to find the king. "Oh, father," he pleaded, "I fear you have been greatly deceived. This trickster's flying horse is nothing more than an illusion, the kind you see in the marketplace. His craft is not invention, but deception, and he has fooled us all." The king turned to the inventor and demanded, "What say you?" The inventor, maintaining his composure, replied, "Magnificent lord and master, I invite the prince to ride the horse and see for himself its power, for experiencing it firsthand is the only way to believe." The king agreed and ordered the slaves to bring forth the wonder horse. The prince, a skilled rider, mounted it with ease and struck its ebony sides with his stirrups, but the horse did not move. "Ha! It's worthless!" he exclaimed. But the inventor calmly instructed, "My lord, feel under the horse's mane. There is a small screw there. Turn it to the right and witness the marvel of this horse." The prince, with a look of scorn, did as instructed. Instantly, the horse began to ascend into the sky, heading toward the sun. The king, now distressed, cried out, "By he who rules the universe, bring him back, for he is my only son." The inventor, putting on a sorrowful expression, replied, "My lord, the arrogance of youth has doomed the prince. I told him how to make the horse ascend, but he did not wait for my further instructions on how to bring it back down. He has flown away, and you shall not see him again until the end of time." Upon hearing these words, the king was overcome with rage. He removed his crown and threw it to the ground, ordering the guards to take the inventor to the dungeons and chain him in irons. As the trickster languished there, the king shut the doors of his palace and succumbed to mourning and grief. The news quickly spread through the town that the king's son was lost forever, and all the people wept and mourned, for the prince was beloved by all, and besides, it was wise to join in the general grieving. Meanwhile, the prince soared through the sky, the wind rushing past him. At first, he felt the damp cold of the clouds, but as he drew closer to the sun, he began to feel its heat. "Surely the sage has set me on a course to destroy me," he thought. "He wishes to end my life because I opposed his marriage to my sister and questioned his wisdom. But I am not dead yet. There is no majesty and might greater than Allah the Glorious. If he wills it, I shall discover how to bring this machine to land." He felt under the mane and found another pin. Unsure of its purpose, he hesitated, fearing that it might cause the horse to flip and send him to his death. But with trepidation, he tried it. The flying horse ceased its ascent and began to level off. For the next hour, the prince experimented with the controls, making the horse climb, descend, and turn in various directions. Soon, he mastered the machine. On, he flew through the sky, now able to enjoy the scenery below. The lakes, mountains, cities, dark forests, fields, and dusty plains. Uncertain of his destination, he was, in fact, over the kingdom of Bengal. Eventually, he saw a bustling town and a magnificent palace with lofty towers and battlements. He thought, That is where I shall land, for it is clear that I am of royal blood, and this is where I shall receive a royal welcome." After nightfall, like a weary bird, he gently landed on the palace's flat roof. He dismounted, saying, "Praise be to Allah." He examined his horse closely in the moonlight, saying, "Whoever created this was a cunning craftsman. It shall yet return me home safely. But now my hunger is great. I shall explore the palace and see what can be found." He dropped through a skylight and crept through the sleeping palace. He wandered through corridors until he found a staircase. Descending the stairs, he found himself in a white marble courtyard with a fountain playing its lovely music. He bathed his hot face and hands and quenched his thirst. Feeling refreshed, he looked around and chose a door at random. He crept silently through the entrance, stepping over the leg of a sleeping guard. A sword hung by the guard's side. Carefully, the prince drew it from its sheath and fixed it at his own side. By the light of a candle, he realized he had entered the harem. The floor was strewn with the forms of sleeping women. In the midst of them, all stood an intricately carved wooden bed, inlaid with pearls, with heavy curtains around it. The prince drew the curtain and saw a sleeping face as beautiful as the moon, with a white, flower-like forehead, shining hair, cheeks like blood-red anemones, and delicate dimples. He was amazed by her beauty and grace. Despite the danger, he no longer feared death. His nerves trembling, he kissed her lovely cheek. If she awoke in fright and screamed for the guards, he would surely be killed. He did not care. She opened her eyes and, seeing the prince, said, "You must be the one who came yesterday and asked for my hand in marriage. My father rejected you and told me you were ugly and uncouth. Now I see that he deceived me, for your face is as glorious as the morning sun." The prince did not deny her assumption, and they began talking. There was an immediate connection between their hearts, and they knew they were destined to love one another. However, one of the waiting women overheard their conversation in her sleep. She awoke, saw a man in the room, and ran out to wake the guard. The guard, realizing he was without a sword and filled with fear, knew he had allowed a stranger into the princess's chamber. Seeing that the prince was armed and appeared noble, the guard fled to wake the king and beg for mercy. The king, awakened from his slumber, grabbed a curved sword called a scimitar and rushed with the guard to the princess's chamber. He intended to kill the intruder, but, seeing that the prince was armed, noble-looking, and clearly a warrior in the prime of youth, as opposed to his own middle-aged flabbiness, the king put down his sword and demanded, "Who are you, rogue, who dares to enter the room of the princess?" The prince replied, "Who are you to call me rogue when I am the prince of a mighty kingdom that could crush yours as easily as an ant beneath the foot of an elephant? If I were not so careful of your daughter's honor and feelings, I would strike you down with this sword." The king responded, "Even if you are the prince of a mighty kingdom, as you claim, all I need to do is call for my guards, and you will be dead in an instant." "And where would the honor be in that?" countered the prince. "If you kill me like a common criminal, O Lord, your kingdom will be crushed beneath the boots of my father's soldiers. But hear my proposal, for there is a better way. In the morning, bring forth your finest soldiers, and I will face them alone. If the Lord Almighty wills it, I shall defeat them. At least we shall provide a spectacle for your household, and everyone shall see that I am no thief or rogue but the son of kings. Whatever the outcome, everyone's honor shall be preserved." The king saw the wisdom in this plan. He recognized the young man's noble birth and thought it wiser and more honorable to grant him a death with dignity. He ordered the slaves to show their guest to a room and prepare food and drink for him, likely his last meal on earth. It was only a few short hours until the sun's rays awoke the palace, and the king ordered his guards to prepare for battle against the prince. The prince arose early, ready to meet his fate.
Two princesses, Nala and Dera, lived with their dad, the Raja, who was super busy and couldn't spend time with them. Their stepmom was mean, making their life in their gorgeous palace pretty unhappy. One day, Nala suggested they run away to the jungle to escape their sad palace life. Dara wondered where they could possibly go, but Nala was optimistic She imagined building a cozy little shelter in the jungle out of branches, sleeping on beds made of grass and flowers, and eating plenty of fruit. Dara decided to wear her blue silk sari and pearls, while Nala chose her yellow silk and rubies. However, Nala was cautious and advised hiding their jewels in their saris to avoid attracting thieves, though they kept their bangles on. The princess's saris were long, luxurious silk wraps, quite different from typical American dresses, and they looked very elegant. Once in the jungle, they found loads of fruit and enjoyed nature, seeing parrots and monkeys. Their adventure led them to a stunning white marble palace in the middle of the jungle, with a welcoming yet mysterious gateway. As they entered, magical words appeared above them. "Enter, Nala, do not fear. Silver and gold await you here." But the words changed as soon as they had read them into these. "Follow her, Dara, you shall see how kind and cruel fate can be." Nervous and guessing it might be an ogre's palace, they were ready to bolt when a friendly jackal appeared. He reassured them that the ogre, or Rakshas, was gone and they could safely enjoy the palace. They explored inside, finding treasures and a luxurious place to bathe, decorated with royal red lotus flowers. Nala wisely suggested a precaution. If strangers visited while they were alone, they should disguise themselves as ugly to stay safe. "Why must I do this?" Dara asked. "Because if they see how pretty you are, they might take you away, and we won't see each other anymore," Nala explained. "You must do the same then," Dara replied, "because you are prettier than me." Then the princesses looked at their reflections in the water of the tank. Both were very pretty, but Nala was slightly taller and more graceful. They both had lovely skin, pearl-like teeth, and eyes that sparkled like stars. One day, while Dara was in the jungle talking to their jackal friend, a prince who was hunting nearby came to the palace asking for water, as he and his attendants were very hot and thirsty. But before Nala went to see what they wanted, she put on a tattered dress over her silk one and smeared her face with charcoal. When the prince's attendants saw a girl with a dirty face and tattered clothes welcoming them to such a beautiful palace, they laughed. However, the prince thought to himself, if she were clean and her clothes were fixed, she'd be very pretty. Nala and the prince couldn't understand each other at first, but eventually she realized he was thirsty, so she quickly brought him a pitcher of water. Instead of drinking, the prince splashed some of the water on Nala's face. Surprised, Nala exclaimed, "Oh, oh!" and stepped back. The water washed the charcoal from her face, revealing her true beauty, even in her ragged dress. The prince immediately fell in love with her. He then removed the ragged dress, revealing her beautiful yellow sari and the string of large rubies around her neck. "My father is a Raja," the prince declared, "and I will take you to his palace, and you shall be my wife." A grand palanquin was brought, and Nala was carefully placed inside it and taken away from the Rakshas' palace. As they traveled through the jungle, Nala, feeling scared, could only peek out at the prince riding ahead on his white horse, while monkeys and parrots moved around, just as they had on the day she and her sister had escaped their cruel stepmother. She was very sad and cried, "Oh, Dara, Dara, I need you, and what will you do without me?" Nala then thought about how to let her sister know where she was taken. She tore a small piece of her sari, wrapped a ruby in it, and dropped it on the ground. She continued doing this until only one ruby remained. By the time they reached the palace of the Raja and Rani, the prince's parents, she had one ruby left. "Follow her, Dara," she recalled the golden letters had said. So, Nala dropped her last ruby right outside the palace, thinking, "If Dara follows me, these rubies will lead her to me." The prince's parents, the Raja and Rani, were thrilled to welcome the beautiful Princess Nala. The Raja gifted her a new ruby necklace, and the Rani was excited about having such a beautiful daughter-in-law. Within a week they were married, and everyone treated Nala very kindly. Meanwhile, poor Dara was back at the Rakshas' palace, crying as if her heart would break. "Nala, Nala, where are you?" she cried repeatedly, but no one answered. She walked out of the palace past the tank where the red lotus flowers floated on the clear water, thinking to herself, "Someone has stolen her." She then looked at the golden letters over the gate. "Follow her, Dara, you shall see how kind and cruel fate can be." "Half of that is definitely true," she said aloud. Suddenly, the jackal appeared behind her and asked, "Which half do you think is true?" "Fate hasn't been kind, so it must be the cruel part," sobbed Dara. "I think you're being ungrateful," said the jackal. "You've been living comfortably in this beautiful palace for some time. It doesn't seem right for you to say you've had no luck." Dara began to cry again. "But I didn't come to tell you that," the jackal continued. "The Rakshas is coming back, and you need to leave." The jackal, being wise, assured her, "Everything will work out, and I'll help you find your sister." So they set off into the jungle, and soon the jackal spotted the first ruby, wrapped in yellow silk, on the grass. They found more rubies as they continued, and eventually left the jungle. "I have to leave you here," said the jackal. "There are towns ahead, and where there are towns, there are people, and people don't like jackals." "But what will I do?" Dara asked. "I'll help you disguise yourself as an old woman," the jackal replied. "You'll have to, or someone might take you away, and you'll never find your sister." The jackal then showed Dara a plant that, when rubbed on her face, made it look an ugly brown and helped her create wrinkles. He also fetched a coarse red sari from a nearby house, claiming he found it growing on a bush. Dara put it on and walked slowly along the road like an old woman. She continued to find Nala's rubies, which were spaced far apart, but eventually she reached the city where Nala was and found the last ruby by the gate of the Raja's palace. She sat nearby, wondering how to get inside. As night fell, the wife of a laborer felt sorry for what she thought was a poor old woman and let her sleep in a hut in her garden, which was close to the palace grounds. Dara decided to bathe in the palace's marble tank, covered with red lotus flowers, early each morning to avoid being seen. When she bathed, the brown stain and wrinkles washed away, and she hung the old sari on a tree, putting on her blue silk sari and pearl necklace. Sitting on the tank steps, she twined red lotus flowers in her hair. "It makes me feel like myself again," she thought, looking at her reflection. The royal lotus flowers reminded her of Nala, and she longed to see her sister even more. After several mornings, the Raja's servants reported that some of the lotus flowers were missing every day before sunrise, which angered the Raja. He planned to offer a reward for catching the thief. The Raja's second son, a very handsome young prince, told his father there was no need for a reward. "I'll catch the thief myself," he said confidently. The Rani, proud of her son, agreed. He will do it easily. That night, the prince patrolled the garden, but eventually grew so sleepy that he lay down near the bathing place and didn't wake until the sun was just rising. The prince, upon seeing a beautiful girl dressed in blue silk with pearls around her neck and red lotus flowers in her hair, stood up quickly and exclaimed, "You cannot be the thief." "I didn't mean to be a thief," Dara said, a bit nervous. "They are my father's flowers, and you can have more if you want," the prince replied, captivated by her lovely face. "Oh no," Dara said, hurrying to pick up the old red cotton sari. "Please don't tell anyone you've seen me." "You must be from Nala's country," the prince guessed, "because you speak like she does." Dara's grip on the old woman's dress loosened as it fell from her hands. "Is Nala here, and do you speak to her?" she asked. It had been so long since she heard her sister's name, it sounded like sweet music to her. "Yes, Nala is here," the prince said. "She is my brother's wife, and we all love her. She is so beautiful. Everyone calls her the star of the palace, but you are even prettier than she is." Hearing this, Dara's fears vanished, and when the prince suggested, "Let's go find Nala," she allowed him to take her hand and lead her into the palace, where everyone remarked, "She looks just like our young Raja's wife." The prince then took Dara to meet the Raja and Rani. Dara introduced herself as Nala's sister and explained her long, difficult journey to find her. Then the prince asked his parents if he could marry Dara, and they were so charmed by her that they agreed he could marry her as soon as he wished. Dara was shown to a luxurious room with silk curtains and lamps adorned with jewels. Nala, dressed in rich silks and jewels as befit a young Raja's wife, had a sad look on her face because she missed her sister so much. "Oh, Dara," Nala exclaimed when she saw her sister, "fate has finally been kind to us." They hugged and kissed repeatedly. When Nala learned that Dara was going to marry her husband's brother and they would all live together, she was overjoyed. Dara mentioned, "The jackal told me everything would turn out well in the end, and it really has." "He's a wise jackal," Nala agreed. The golden letters over the Rakshas's palace gateway should say, "Seek long, seek far, and you shall find. To patient seekers, fate is kind." If he were here, I would ask him to change it.